fellas, some of you are gonna hate me for today's video, because it should be the wrap up to the previous character, the Bleed Splitting Steel Deadeye. But to be honest, after that video, I just didn't want to keep playing the character. Not because it was bad, but rather because I got bored of it rather fast. So instead of forcing myself to do something that I didn't wanna do, I decided to change things a bit and opted to abandon that project, to focus on something else, something fun. Now, yes, when it comes to today's topic, we are kinda scratching the bottom of the barrel in the realm of having fun, but we are gonna do some things to spice it up. This is a Cyclone Champion using a 7-link terminus est and some funky gear and passive choices. However, I must admit that this build was supposed to be a Slayer using Kitava's Fist. And believe me or not, I spent the greater part of this past week corrupting multiple Kitava's Fist axes. I won't lie to you, I think I got at least 45 of them corrupted. And I did this because I wanted the Fortify corrupted support implicit, which never happened. Freaking great, right? You know, just casually burning currency hoping to get something that simply didn't wanna happen anyways, but you know, sometimes it do be like that. So instead of mortgaging my in-game hideout for some currency, I decided to rely on the good old trusty terminus est to handle today's shenanigans. Having said that, this build was an experiment, not because I can't handle Cyclone or anything, but rather the way I built it has some quirks to it. Yes, it is Impale. Yes, it is a 7-link. Yes, we've got some of my old tricks crammed into it. But I am testing the concept of using Rage support in conjunction with Bloodsend, a cluster you will notable, to build up stacks of Rage in order to trigger Berserk. And I did this because, as we all know, the Chainbreaker Keystone from the Lethal Pride Jewels got nerfed. While I still intend on giving that keystone a go soon, I wanted to see how generating Rage quote-unquote naturally would work out. And as you'll see from the gameplay, I gotta say that we can reliably ignore the Lethal Pride. Granted, Cyclone is gonna be the best skill for that kind of goal, because at the end of the day, we want to build up those stacks fast. And unless the skill we use in the build has like 10 attacks per second, it is not gonna go anywhere in the Rage department. So you're gonna have to forgive the quote-unquote generic aspect of using Cyclone today. Now, we are using a couple of modifiers that have seen better days in this build as well, namely the Exploding Mod. And I decided to cram it into this character not because I wanted the extra clear, but rather to get rid of undead crap, which is kinda the reason as to why I wanted to do an Slayer using Kitava's Fist, but that didn't go anywhere, so I was forced to compensate some other way. Coming back to the Exploded Chest, I am not gonna lie, it is pathetic. It went from being one of the strongest mods in the game to a complete joke. And not even a funny one. Again, I don't care about detonating half the screen with it, even though it was kinda funny, but at the end of the day, my use with it was to remove corpses and other screen cluttering crap. Unfortunately, it doesn't do that anymore, and thanks to RNG we need one for this character. In a perfect world scenario, this is a Slayer using Kitava's Fist, but for today's sake, the nerfed Explodey is the play that we gotta commit into. But it's all good, because at the end of the day the character handles stuff like a champ. Pun intended. As you'll see from Sirius on Awakener 8, Shaper and some random stuff, and also the final phase of Maven's fight. You know, content. Anyways, before I spoil more of today's fun, hey, if you are new around here, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, otherwise a rating and a comment are always appreciated. And now, let us spin to win. Really, now that I think about it, that's all there is to it. So yeah. Alright everyone, gear time. However, I'm gonna try to go fast here, mainly because you can check these things in the PoE. So I'm just gonna point out the important stuff. But do try to get as much life, resists and chaos res everywhere and anywhere. But we also need at least 113 intelligence to use infused channeling. So don't forget about that attribute when searching for gear. Anyways, our main source of damage is the good old terminus est. This sword is a rather frequent visitor to the channel, mainly because it tends to be a stupid cheap and because it is pretty decent at its job. It gives us frenzy charges on crit, movement speed and has decent stats. And overall it is a prime candidate for corrupting and acquiring a 7-link. For the helmet we use a Crown of the Inward Eye, with either Cyclone attack speed, Blood Rage attack speed or attack speed while Ancestral Protector is up. For the body armor we gotta smash together two body armors, one with attack crit chance and another one with Exploding Mod. Remember that you gotta use either tier 2 or elevated Explodey for this, mainly to get the explosions a bit more frequently as the modifier got nerfed. For the gloves, we're gonna use Doomfist, with a Corrupted Frenzy charge as implicit. Also, we socket a Murderous Eye Jewel on it to intimidate enemies on hit. Now, I'm gonna do a small parenthesis here. Yes, Champion intimidates enemies that are on full life. But what about those that are not? As far as I am concerned, there are enemies like Sirius or Shaper, where their health bars are at 100% once in the entire fight. Sure, you're gonna intimidate them in their first phase, but what about the rest of the fight? I don't think that status effects carry over from phase to phase, hence why I still decided to rock these gloves. However, if you feel like they are redundant with the Ascendancy, feel free to use a Searching Eye Jewel and maim enemies on hit instead. Anyways, the Murderous Eye Jewel in the gloves has life, resists, and crit multi. The boots need Tailwind on crit. The amulet is optimally an intelligence base, with crit multi and if possible some damage mod. But we also need to craft negative channeling skill mana cost on it and also Anoint Panopticon, you know, to greatly buff the ancestral totems and the buffs they give us while active. One of the rings has vulnerability on hit, crit multi, and we benchcraft more negative channeling skill mana cost. I recommend using Synthesis rings with the curse as the implicit, and then you can spam Essences of Scorn until you hit the desired mods. That's how I made mine. The other ring has Onslaught on hit as the Synthesis implicit, alongside crit multi from Essences of Scorn. The belt is a Stygian Vice with life, plenty of resists, and we want to craft damage on it. It houses another Abyss Jewel with crit multi and intelligence. Finally, for flasks, a Diamond, a Lion's Roar, and a Sulfur Flask with crit chance crafted on it. Optimally, a Bottle Fate instead of the Sulfur Flask, but I am poor after gambling so many Kitaba's Fist corruptions. I'm still salty about it. And that is it for the gear. Again, as much life, resistances, intelligence, and chaos res is absolutely mandatory, so don't skip on those. But yeah, let us talk about the 3 now. Alright, so this is a level 95 champion. It is my gladiator from a couple videos ago turned into this Crash Bandicoot wannabe. We side with Alira for resistances and crit multi, and for Pantheons, Lunaris or Solaris as the main one and Shakari or Averath as the lesser one. For the Ascendancy itself, Unstoppable Hero for the Fortified Goodies, Master of Metal for the Impale stuff, Inspirational for the Aura Effect and Free War Banner Reservation, and finally First to Strike and Last of All for the Adrenaline. We are gonna trigger that Adrenaline manually by chunking our health with an aura linked to Arrogance, mostly for single target purposes. Now for the tree. It is a pretty self-contained skill tree. We are gonna focus on acquiring those Frenzy charges and any crit chance and crit multi on the way. We're also gonna require Impale chance near the Duelist area and near the Scion area. We also need any generic damage on the way like Sword stuff, 200 stuff, Life Leech and damage, Fortified stuff and Aura stuff. Obviously we want to grab any life on the way, and if you need resistances, the nodes near the Duelist start are good, which is what I took to cap mine. However, the elephant in the room is that 8 passive cluster jewel. The important node here is Blood Scent, which is gonna give us 1 stack of rage, but it cannot happen more than once every second. Optimally speaking, we will have 2 Megalomaniacs with the notable on them as well, you know, to get more rage on hit, but for now the single node is fine. Having said that, we only take 5 points in this cluster jewel, but make sure that Blood Scent is one of those. The medium cluster has precise focus and unwavering focus. This last one is a bit redundant with the Ascendancy since we are stun immune while having Fortify, but the reason we want it is for the reduced cost of channeling skills. Cyclone cannot cost more than 1 mana, otherwise we're gonna run out of mana stupid fast, especially seeing as we don't have mana leech. Finally, for the jewels, we want crit multi and any generic damage that we can cram into them. Stuff like attack speed, accuracy, crit chance, fist damage, damage with swords, etc. However, some of my jewels have intelligence or resistances, but it's gonna depend on the gear that you've got. And with all of that said, let's talk about the gem setups now. Alright, in the weapon, Cyclone, Anomalous Impale, Anomalous Rage, Brutality, Infused Channeling and Close Combat. Now remember that a Corrupted Fortify implicit on a 6-link terminus makes this a 7-link, which is absolutely mandatory, especially if you intend on tackling endgame bosses. In the helmet, Blood Rage and War Banner, and we also have Purity of Elements linked to Arrogance. This is to trigger Adrenaline manually. You'll have to take a sip of the Life Flask though, so it's not that free, but at least we have some control over it. In the body we've got Divergent Pride, Blood and Sand, Precision and Herald of Purity, with all of them linked to Enlighten. In the boots, Flame Dash and Berserk linked to Life Tap and Second Wind. and in the gloves Ancestral Protector and Ancestral Warchief, linked to multiple totems, you know, to have both totem types up during single target. And with all of that said, let's wrap up yet another successful spin to win build. And yes, at the end of the day, it is indeed a Cyclone build. It is literally an Impale Champion build. But as I said in the intro, the main goal was experimenting with some alternate rage generation, in the form of rage support and blood scent. Again, as we all know, Chainbreaker got nerfed, quite substantially, so we don't get to cheese with it as we did for a couple of leagues. So looking into alternate rage sources, especially when not playing Berserker, was my goal. Now yes, it was gonna work either way, but the thing to take away is how fast we can deal with stuff, to make this little experiment worth doing in the end. In the past, I've had Cyclone builds where the endgame bosses didn't even get to move. The Cyclone Champion that I didn't harvest or the Cyclone Berserker from Delirium come to mind. That level of cheese is not gonna happen with this setup, but I still wanted to see how good this could work in comparison to previous versions of the build. And again, the original plan involved the Kitaba's Fist. Kitaba's Fist used to be one of my favorite weapons before the health rebalance of 3.9. You know, with the release of Metamorph and Conquerors of the Atlas expansion roughly a year ago. I wanted to use Kitaba's Fist as a Slayer because detonating enemies for free sounded excellent for this build. Unfortunately, as I keep lamenting throughout the video, RNG is a cruel mistress, and because of that I had to turn to the terminus in order to complete this build. Which it did deliver, but it leaves me thinking about greener pastures, which we'll hopefully get to test next league. Maybe, I don't know. But for now, that's the build. It did the stuff that I wanted to do with it, and going forward I'm definitely gonna try and cram rage support as well as many blood scent notables into a character, because having alternatives is always good. So yeah, that's gonna be it for me today. If you got to this point, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, otherwise a rating and a comment are always appreciated. Thank you so much for watching the video, take care, have a nice weekend, and peace out.